Well, normally we're talking about dual cab utes on the show, Paul, but let me tell you, haven't electric vehicles gone berserk in the last couple of weeks?
Yes. Normally I sit here and pretend I don't know what you're talking about, but this time around I'm not going to bother. Electric cars are gone absolutely bananas.
They're completely bananas. First of all, Labor announced, the opposition announced, if they were to come in government, they want a target of half of all new cars sold in Australia to be electric by 2030. That's 11 years away. And then a couple of days after that, Bill Shorten said what?
Look, he said, he went on radio and he was asked on that show by the presenters, how long does it take to charge an electric car? And he said it'd take between 8 and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that shows you a couple of things, that A, he's completely uninformed, and B, that it's not quite possible yet. Now, we want to outlay here immediately, this has nothing to do with politics. Yeah. Whether one party or the other announce this doesn't really bother us. In fact, I think the Liberals actually have a policy in place for 25 to 50% of new car sales to be EV by the same time.
Well, this is the thing. We've had some emails from some readers, viewers of the TV show, people who've heard us on various radio programs saying we're pushing Liberal Party propaganda, whatever it might be. The Liberal Party doesn't have a counter policy to this. So the first argument is the Labor Party, when they made that announcement, didn't know the facts and figures. The Liberal Party didn't counter-argue it because they don't know the facts and the figures. As you said, the Liberal Party has already invested in some infrastructure as well. They've invested in charging infrastructure, and they have a similar policy anyway. So this has nothing to do with politics. What this has to do with is what we do at CarAdvice, which is clear things up, give advice to people on what sort of car they should buy, and answer questions from you, viewers, readers of the website, as to what this all means. Because we've had people saying, well, will my petrol car be worthless? Will I have to buy an electric car? Will an electric car work for me? What does it even mean? So that's what we've got to clarify. But let's first start with the big issue, which is the charging times. Let's start with that.
So it's a big issue only because of the negativity around it and how wrong the commentary has been. So charging an electric car, when we talk about charging it from empty to full, it's kind of a redundant argument because you're never really doing that. Based on my experience, I've done 6,000 Ks now an hour I-pace. I've never once had to charge it from empty. I just get home, plug it in, and away I go. So charging is a contentious issue because the charge times vary depending on what you're using. So if you plug it into a power point at home, so the same power point that you run a toaster out of, some electric cars like the Tesla Model S could take 48 hours to charge, which is an incredible amount of time.
That's right.
But you can then step up from there to, for example, the charging point we have at our office in Sydney or Melbourne, or the charging point I have at home, where that time reduces greatly to around 12 hours from empty. So this is always from empty. And then cars in between have different types of charging that they accept. And you can see a full breakdown of this at CarAdvice.com. If you want the technical details, we have it all there.
And look, just on the charging time thing as well, there's been some criticism about that, and people have been saying, oh, you never drive it down to zero. No, you don't. But you've got to have a range that the manufacturer can claim. Otherwise, you guys out there will all be complaining that they haven't given you an indicative time. So yes, you don't drive them down to zero, but Tesla quote 0 to 100% or 20 to 80%. And that's about the best they can do. They can't infinitely quote, oh, well, if you run it down to 11% and you charged it to 73%, that doesn't work. So 0 to 100, while, as you said, you never do it, because run it to zero, you're broken down on the side of the road somewhere, aren't you? So you're probably never going to run it lower than 10, 20%. In my experience with the ones I've tested, 10% is about as low as you go because you don't want to push it too far anyway. But that 0 to 100 is, think of it like the ADR fuel figure. When they tell us a car uses 7.5 litres per 100, we'll go and test it and say, you know what? No, it actually uses 9.5 or 10 litres per 100. So charging times vary a lot. As we said, at the moment, a lot of the misinformation about the fast charging times relates to the fact that people don't understand, average punters out there don't understand, that the best you can hope for is not available to you at home. This is a supercharger network, isn't it? So even if you can charge a car in 5 or 10 minutes through one of these superchargers down the track, which the technology is telling us you can do, this is not going to be in your driveway at home, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, that's the thing. To me, it doesn't really matter because exactly. I don't need it to charge in 5 minutes. I'm happy to plug it up at home like you would a mobile phone or something. Now, the question of whether we are actually moving towards an electric future, there's no doubt that we are. Every manufacturer is pushing ahead with electric vehicles. Volkswagen, for example, has announced it's going to spend 44 billion euros over the next 4 or 5 years to invest in electric cars. They're going to release a whole stack of models here between now and that 5 or 10 year period. So there is no kidding here that these guys are getting behind this technology and they see that it is where it's heading. But it doesn't necessarily mean that in 10 years' time you will be forced to buy one of these. when we're talking about electric cars, we're not just talking about EVs, we're talking about hybrid, plug-in hybrid, full electric, and there will be some cases where this doesn't work. So, I mean, this is the thing. You might not own one because there might not be an EV for you.
And that's the point there. What we would have liked Bill Shorten to articulate, and anybody that's counter-argued that, is whether they mean pure electric, fully electric, or the vehicles you just spoke about there. So if you don't understand all of this technology, there's what we call closed-loop hybrid, which is something like a Prius, a Corolla hybrid. Toyota's been doing it for a while. It's got a hybrid drivetrain that works out what it's doing, and you never touch it, you just drive it like a normal car. Then you step up to a plug-in hybrid, which you plug in, you charge, it's got a certain amount of electric range. When that depletes, it then goes back to a normal petrol or diesel engine, and then there's full electric. Now, for all we know, this policy could have been a mix of all of those, and manufacturers are telling us that they're working on that technology as much as they are electric technology. Yep. We've read some stuff in the press in the last week that says manufacturers have indicated that they're going to stop developing and they intend to stop building petrol and diesel engines. That's categorically incorrect. Every manufacturer has told us the opposite of that. In fact, manufacturers like BMW and Audi have said, look, we don't think the diesel engine has reached the ends of its development yet, let alone petrol. And that's because they'll be working on hybrid systems, won't they?
And also because some markets in the world won't be able to accept EVs. I mean, you look at some countries where you can barely have a light bulb running correctly. You're not going to force EVs onto these countries, and manufacturers will have to continue developing these engines for these markets. And if Australia's fuel quality never improves, because petrol quality in Australia is pretty bad at the moment, we may be lumped with some of these archaic machines. So, look, it is an interesting argument here, and we are very keen to see how it pans out and exactly how we will end up in 10 years' time. We know, for example, that with mobile phones, if you had a mobile phone 10 years ago and I told you that mobile phones will be able to surf the net, make calls and do all manner of things, you'd be thinking I'm joking, right? But 10 years ahead today, you look back and you think, well, it's nothing, a mobile phone does that. In 10 years' time, we could be in the same place with EVs where charging is a non-event. It could be a 2-minute job. You might get 1,000 Ks out of it because power density increases. Or it could be the opposite. We could be going down the hydrogen path. So we still don't know exactly where this is heading. What we do know is that it is a potential here to create jobs for Australia. So Tritium is the company that produces a lot of high-end charging infrastructure. They have devices that have been rolled out across Australia. This is a good opportunity for us to leverage our power here in lithium, our power here in local development, and to actually get behind this cause and roll out some infrastructure that creates jobs in Australia.
So in the meantime, if you go to CarAdvice.com, we have a table there which shows you indicative charge times of all the electric vehicles that you can buy at the moment. We're also live, we're about to go live with our EV mega test. It's the first one, I believe, that anybody's done in Australia. It's the first one we've done, and we've put all the vehicles together and done a whole range of tests. If there's anything else you want to know, let us know at CarAdvice.com. By all means, always ask any questions. As we said at the outset, forget politics, forget the environmental argument for the moment. This is purely just about the technology and the vehicles. And anything you want to know, we'll be testing it at CarAdvice.com.